So I've looked at the glitz and glam of the AFL stadiums, but what do the second tier VFL stadiums look like? If you enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button and subscribe for more.
The Victorian Football League is the most prominent Australian football league outside of the AFL. Despite its name, it now includes several interstate teams.
Now, obviously, as someone that follows football, soccer as the Aussies know it, I'm used to a real long pyramid of football, of different leagues. And obviously, even in our second tier, we get some real decent stadiums, even in third, fourth, and even down to the National League, which is the fifth league. You can still get some real quality stadiums because money trickles down and they get investors and owners that actually put money into the club. So it'll be interesting to see, because I haven't actually looked at any sort of VFL team stadiums before. It'll be interesting to try and compare. And is there really a comparison? I'm sure you guys will tell me, oh, you can't compare. But I will do my best and see if I can to see what the difference may be and what level the VFL stadiums are in terms of maybe the English pyramid football.
It's made up of some reserve teams and some independent clubs, and is semi-professional, so a lot of the grounds are quite modest. But most of them have a storied history, so let's check them out.
Oh.
Box Hill City Oval, Box Hill Hawks. We start off with one of the most basic grounds in the league. So basic that I'd probably say that the highlight of the ground is the hedges that surround it, which not only look good but stop people watching the game without a ticket. Other than that, most of the capacity is coming from terracing or just people standing around the boundary fence. As you'll see later on, bucket seating is a luxury in this league.
Having a hedge round the green reminds me of a bowls green, and obviously I'm a lawn bowls player. That sums that up, so people can't watch. It almost feels like you're excluded if you're on the outside. And I get why, they want people to pay to come in. But at that level, you know, a big hedge isn't that nice, is it? This would, if you were talking about comparison with English football, this is way down. I do tier 7 and below, and some stadiums, some, you know, club grounds that are tier 7, tier 8, tier 9 have more seating than this. So this is real low, and that's amateur football still. Not semi-pro, amateur have bigger than this. Bad start for VFL.
Brighton Homes Arena, Brisbane Lions. This is the newly built training facility that the Brisbane Lions now call home. And as far as training facilities go, it seems pretty ideal for the VFL, seating around 600 or so in the main stand in comfort and under cover. There's also a wraparound concourse for ease of navigation, some interesting seating options throughout, and overall, I quite like how, despite being a modern facility, they've still incorporated plenty of red brick.
I would say this, I wouldn't necessarily compare this to anything in the league system. What I would compare this to is academy football. So I've refereed at Southampton Football Club Academy, and they have their training grounds. So a lot of the under 23s, the under 18s and below would play their matches on the training pitch. And they have, very similar to what they had, is they have normally it's just a basic seating terrace or a stand with a little bit of a viewing at the top where they can film and record and analytics stuff. And that actually looks very much like this. Very much like that training ground style, but actually it's quite nice. It's quite pleasant actually, isn't it?
Icon Park, Carlton Blues. This is yet another training facility used by the AFL team. There are a lot of them. I'll probably stop mentioning it. Despite that, this is probably my favourite VFL stadium. It's had some demolition work done since its AFL days ended in the mid-2000s, but I'm glad they've kept most of those distinctive wavy roof stands and the colourful seating within intact.
That's quite nice, isn't it? Carlton, that is lovely. It may only be a training ground, but that could be so much more than a training ground, right? Because look at those, look at the stands. That's a 3-tier stand almost. No, it is a 3-tier stand. That is actually quite nice. I don't think that's fair just to call it a training ground. That's really nice. And actually, that could easily be a proper, I said proper, that's rude. No, a proper team stadium. That could be that, couldn't it? Not a huge one, but it will fit plenty of people in. Nice work, Carlton. I really like that. And I do like the waves almost of that roof.
It has retained its unique character. And with the advent of the AFLW, Women's Football League, it's still going strong.
Good.
Casey Fields, Casey Demons. This is a pretty typical example of a newly built suburban football ground, with just a slightly larger capacity. There are some seats in the main stand, and some covered terracing over on the other side. But most of the capacity is coming from the grass berms that surround the majority of the field. I'm sure they're much better on a sunny day.
Once again, it is basically non-league football. This is, if you're going to compare, this is really, really low down. And look, I know the money is in the AFL, but clearly then not a lot is trickling down. Not a lot of people, by the looks of these stadiums, are going to watch VFL games. They are watching AFL and that's it, because no money seems to be really invested in a lot of these stadiums unless they are the AFL reserve teams, which you saw, for example, with Carlton. And that's a shame. This is, these grounds are no better or bigger than tier 9 or 10 in the Football League, that is low. That is amateur sport. That's a shock. Real shock.
It's simple, but at least it seems like it's kept in good condition.
Once again,
Piranha Park, Coburg Lions. Piranha Park seems like a theme park for thrill seekers, although I believe it's actually a myth that piranhas are man-eaters. They are in fact a very sexist species and only eat women. Anyway, this old ground does have one small red brick clad stand, but almost the entire field is surrounded by uncovered terracing. It's certainly not pretty, but this is.
Another one, it's not that great, is it? And I'm going to talk about this now, actually, before I forget. There's clearly no or very little trickle-down economics, is there here? I appreciate in English football, I say English, it's a world sport, but you know what I mean when I say it. In our football, yes, it's a pyramid, and actually all that money that's going in, not enough is coming down, but money does still go down the leagues. Not enough, I stress, not enough. But by the looks of this, nothing is trickling down. And if you want a sport to do well and do better, you need money to trickle down to the lower leagues, in my opinion anyway. And just by looking at the grounds, it doesn't seem like that is happening. And Pixie's here. That's quite nice.
Victoria Park, Collingwood Magpies. For any British people watching, Collingwood is the Millwall of Australian football. For Americans, they are the Raiders. For
no one likes them.
I don't know. This is their reserve team though, of course. But just like Carlton's Icon Park, Victoria Park was Collingwood's actual home back in the day. Most of the stands of this ground have been demolished since its glory days, and have been replaced with community space, as they like to call it. They've struck a nice balance.
I could compare stadiums like this as more like some of the English cricket stadiums. Maybe a little bit better than this could some of those are. And like some like the Rose Bowl or Aegis Bowl it is now called in Southampton, and the other bigger ones. I'm not a cricket person. I don't know them all. Edgbaston, there you go. I'm sure actually those bigger ones are better than this, but a lot more of the bigger cricket grounds, other than those big ones, are like this or like what Carlton's were, for example. So that may match up a little bit better than that, but those other ones, but that is once again because they are linked with the AFL teams. That is the only reason why they've got slightly nicer stadiums. The teams that seem to be, on their own they have to try and manage themselves and manage finances and things like that, which must be very difficult.
Windy Hill, Essendon Bombers. Surely that's not... Oh, there we go. These are the complications that arise when you name a perfectly flat field Windy Hill. This is a similar situation to the last one, although more of the original structures are still standing, and they're looking a little worse for wear. I believe there are redevelopment plans akin to Victoria Park, but for now it's a derelict yet interesting relic of the past.
I can't add anything, can I? It's same as the Collingwood.
Victoria University Whitten Oval. Footscray Bulldogs. Oh, sorry. Footscray Bulldogs. By the early 2000s, this former top-tier stadium was looking pretty derelict like the last one. However, it's been undergoing a multi-stage redevelopment, boosted by the success of women's football, a sport that this venue often hosts. Eventually there will be actual seating surrounding the entire field, and all the buildings on site will be modernised. I'm glad to see stuff like this, because it was a bit of a shame that these former AFL stadiums were left to rot. After all, the Melbourne clubs moved to the Docklands and the G.
Same again.
Kinetic Stadium, Frankston Dolphins. The suburb of Frankston gets a bad rap because of the way it is, but you can't say a bad word about the beachside location. As you may have noticed from the aerial shot, the ground is very narrow.
That is
So
egg-shaped.
it comes as no surprise that cricket isn't played here in the summer, as it is at a lot of the independent VFL grounds. So there's no square in the centre square.
See, that's an interesting one. They're talking about saying that actually cricket's not played there during their your Aussie's summer, because surely that's a difficulty with finances. At least if you've got cricket during the summer and you've got football during the winter, you've got more income coming in. Maybe you've got more expenditure. I don't know. You obviously do, but that must be a bit tricky. And the fact that that is a funny shaped oval, isn't it? That is proper egg shaped. That is more egg shaped than Geelong Stadium, right?
It's actually a pretty cool ground with
Looks
an
all right.
interesting mix of stands. GMHBA Stadium, Geelong Cats.
GMHBA Stadium.
The stadium might seem a little out of place, and that's because it's the actual home of Geelong's first team, who compete in the fully professional AFL. I could be wrong, but I believe it's the only stadium mentioned in the club's song. Our banners fly high from dawn to dark, down at GMHBA Stadium. Or you know what, I think they used the non-commercial name, Cardinia Park. That makes sense.
Cardinia Park.
Yeah, this is obviously one of the best stadiums in the league. It would have been even before the recent renovations, but they have obviously improved it further.
See, I've seen and I've looked in VR and everything, and I've driven past. The only real thing I like about this stadium, and this sounds, if you're a Geelong fan, I'm not trying to be rude, but the only actual thing I like about the stadium is the awesome lights. I don't actually like the stadium, and I don't know why. It feels soulless. You know, it feels like what a lot of our football stadiums are. When Southampton moved from the Dell, which had a lot of character, to St Mary's, which has no character, that's what this feels like, except the really, really cool floodlights. That is all you've got. I'm sorry. I just don't like it. Sorry.
Metricon Stadium.
The Metricon?
Suns. It's yet another and the only other AFL stadium you'll see in this video. Originally a simple stadium used mostly for cricket, it was completely redeveloped prior to the launch of the Gold Coast Suns, and has since even gone on to host the Commonwealth Games. It's not very built up compared to most AFL stadiums. I mean, the exterior consists of mostly just the underside of the concrete stands, but still, I think it looks pretty good.
I think if you are one of the reserve teams that are playing in the VFL for example, the Gold Coast Suns, you are so lucky to be playing in a stadium like this, because, you know, if you're one of those more independent VFL teams, you get basic stands, basic grounds and whatnot. And you are so lucky to be able to play in these stadiums that they're there for the AFL. You're so lucky. And I like the Metricon. I love the roof, similar to the Gabba, isn't it? That airy roof, and it just feels light and airy. And there in the sunny day would be awesome, as long as it's not too hot, obviously. But very lucky if you get to play here.
You certainly don't see a red and yellow colour scheme very often. Blacktown ISP Oval, Greater Western Sydney Giants. The stadium is part of a rather large sports complex. The ISP in fact stands for International Sports Complex. Although the capacity is quite large, there are just about 1,000 or so seats in this small stand, with the rest of the capacity coming from the huge grass berm that surrounds the rest of the field. So kind of like Casey Fields, its capacity to host a large crowd is kind of dependent on the weather. Jenna Steele Oval, Northern Bullants. Overall, this is a pretty tired looking ground. That's probably due to the financial troubles that the club has endured in recent years. There are some positives, however. The main stand with its elevated seating offers a great view of the ground, and in a strange tie-in to the club's name, they've actually brought in dozens of colonies of bull ants into the grass embankments, just to keep the kids entertained. Ardent Street Oval, North Melbourne Kangaroos. Okay, now it's a stretch to call this one a stadium.
Can I just say, so, you've got the other teams, Geelong and Collingwood, for example. Not that it was a great ground, but Collingwood and the other one at the start. Hang on, I'm going to remember it. Brisbane Lions, for example, that have their training grounds as the pitches for the VFL teams. This is North. This sums up North. It sums it up, doesn't it? There is nothing there except a grass pitch and a few office buildings. Oh my God, North.
It was back in the day, but at the moment it's just a simple training ground where the reserves happen to play.
Disappointing.
If you're someone who needs to be seated to enjoy watching your team play, you'll have to get in early. There are like 12 seats here. I mean, I can't see any, but there has to be some, surely. BTU Stadium, Port Melbourne Boroughs, who are the most successful club in VFL history, which is impressive considering they're not affiliated with an AFL team. Or perhaps that's an advantage somehow? I don't know. The stadium was renovated a few years ago, which included the addition of an interesting looking wooden building. Kinda strange, but also kinda cool.
What?
That's all good, but the best aspect of this stadium is the ever-changing skyline backdrop.
That's a good shout. That backdrop. And this is what I loved about being, for example, in St Kilda by the beach, was being able to see the Melbourne skyline, being way out of it and just being able to see it from long distance. And that's quite cool, having that view. Sometimes it's not necessarily just about the stadium. It's about what views you're getting when you're sitting there. And this is quite cool, right? This is really cool. It's not a very good stadium. And this is lower than non-league. This is, once again, another tier 9 in Football League, amateur, not amazing. But, these are these independent clubs that haven't got the finances. And I can understand. I'm not bashing it. I can say I can understand.
Swinburne Centre, also known as Punt Road, which is a fitting name for a football ground if ever there was one, is home to the Richmond Tigers. Although it's one of the smaller former top-tier stadiums in this league, it's one of the more interesting grounds for sure.
I like the yellow and black on the roof.
I just like the way it combines the ancient, quaint little Jack Dyer stand with the ultra-modern, whatever this is.
That's cool,
Sadly,
I like that.
The Jack Dyer stand is set to be demolished and replaced with a newer version of it. But to be fair, it is looking a little rickety.
I like that it's themed. I like that it's themed like Richmond. It doesn't even look like a stand. Whatever, it's just officey buildings, isn't it? And so it's not even adding capacity by the looks of it. But it looks cool. It looks cool, and it matches the club badge.
Trevor Barker Beach Oval, Sandringham Zebras. As the name suggests, and as your eyes confirm, the
right on the
stadium's
beach.
right by the beach, although unfortunately spectators don't really get an ocean view. But you can't have your cake and eat it. Yes, you can actually, I did that yesterday. There are just a couple of small stands at this ground, including one that reminds all the pilots flying above which team plays here. That's a very important feature that is often overlooked at other grounds.
That's a real shame. A real shame you can't see the sea. That would be so cool if you could see the sea, but you cannot. A real low quality stadium, right?
Fankhauser Reserve, Southport Sharks. You'll notice that there is a ring of car parks around the field. That's actually quite a common sight at country footy grounds. Because the playing area is so large, there's just so much room for it. So you can just sit in your car, eat some dim sims and watch the game. Instead of clapping after a goal, people honk the horns. I'm not sure if that would be allowed here, but I can't see how that would police that.
And what you can do is if the floodlights fail, just get everyone to sit in their car and turn the headlights on. That's what we used to do when we played youth football, and we used to train during the week on a random bit of grass, and you used to have to rely on the dads having their cars parked with the headlights on. This could be used for this.
The Southport Sharks planned on building themselves a proper boutique stadium. Tramway Oval, Sydney Swans.
This is odd.
The team representing the country's biggest city, actually, you know what, just yesterday I think Melbourne overtook Sydney. So I have to change that.
Why, Sydney? Sydney, this is worse than North. This is worse than North. And actually, I've seen that, and I've literally walked down there, and I've been there, and I've seen kids playing on that pitch. And now I know what it is, and that is so disappointing that Sydney, another team that is in the AFL, hasn't provided decent training facilities like the other teams, like the Start. Like Brisbane, for example. That's really disappointing on my Swans.
The team representing the country's second biggest city plays at a ground with the smallest capacity.
That's awful.
It's just a field next to the SCG. I'm not sure what else I can say. It's just what you'd expect from a typical training ground. Avalon Airport Oval, Werribee Tigers. It's a good thing they've got the Avalon Airport sponsorship.
Don't mind that.
The non-commercial name is Chirnside Park, which is also the name of a suburb on the other side of the city. And I can't help but feel that has caused some confusion in the past. At least once or twice. Anyway, I quite like the newly built main stand. It wouldn't look out of place at Pont Road Oval.
It looks cool, yeah.
Other than that, you can tell it's a long way from the city centre. Nothing but trees in the background. Downer Oval, Williamstown Seagulls. I don't know what it is about the name Downer Oval, but I'm just not feeling it, you know.
Oh.
Nice ground though. Their rivals Port Melbourne might have a nice skyline backdrop, but Williamstown play at one of the few venues where you can actually see the ocean in the background whilst watching the game on TV. You can also see the city skyline way off in the distance as well, so there's a lot going for this place. So there you have it, the VFL Stadiums. As for my favourite, well, I kind of want to say Icon Park, but realistically, GMHBA Stadium is just that bit better.
See, as I said, I really don't like that stadium, and I really like the Brisbane one. It's interesting because you've got a real mix here, and it depends what club you're at. You get some of the stadiums are the AFL stadiums. You've got some of the stadiums are basically the AFL training grounds, which are mostly high quality, and then you get those independent teams that have no link to the AFL teams. And they are proper low level, what we would see as non-league amateur stadiums with very small capacity, low facilities. And it's understandable. It's perfectly understandable. And it's a real strange mix to be going from 1 week going to the GMHBA Stadium, Piranha Park, to then being right next to the SCG on a bit of grass. It's very, very odd. there's no sort of consistency, is there? I don't even know what else to think. It's mad, the difference in stadiums, and it's actually shocked me a little bit. Weird. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video exploring all the different stadiums of the VFL. Obviously, make sure you like and subscribe. Do me a favour, and I'll catch you next time.